Here's my advice to make 2025 the best year of your life. There's 4 steps. Eliminate distractions, get started, get better, never stop. Number 1, elimination of the things that are distracting you. When I was young, my father gave me this advice. Rich people buy time. Poor people buy stuff. Ambitious people buy skills. Lazy people buy distraction. I can give you the first and easiest 2025 prediction. Look at what you spend money on, look at your calendar, and wherever you invest is what you will get more of. So many people are surprised when they look at their bank account next year and it's lower than they want it to be. They look at their accomplishments from that year and it's not the things they set out to do. But when you look at their calendar and their credit card expenses, it's very obvious why those things didn't happen. Because we vote with our dollars about the things that we care about. We vote about the type of person that we want to become. And as the first thing that you can do today for next year is actually comment below this video, and I rarely ask for this, the thing that you're actually going to do today. Not what you're going to begin doing next year or what your resolution is going to be. But if it's important enough to do for future you, it's certainly important enough to do for current you. Because current you, by the way, is the only you that's ever going to enjoy life. I'll give you this story. So I remember when I was, a few years back, I was walking with Layla and we went to Sephora, which is like a makeup store. So we walked inside. I'm sitting, standing there awkwardly because I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. There's this lady with the smock who helps out, and she had these 2 girls who were young. They must have been maybe, about this old. I'm guessing between 9 and 40, who knows. She's leaning over and she has these 2 paintbrushes in her hands and she says, okay girls, now that you guys are women, you need to start budgeting for this stuff because you're gonna be spending money on this every single month to do your makeup. And so the girls grabbed them, they were super excited, and they went to go check out. And I saw that exchange as actually a really beautiful lesson when it comes to identity. Our priorities we dictate by what we spend, not by what we say. These girls, because they wanted to step into this new identity, had to match it with new priorities. So they had money, or they had saved up their shekels, or whatever they do for chores or babysitting or whatever. By doing that, they had to start prioritizing some of that money towards their new identity from girls to women. But the thing is that many people who want to start next year think, okay, well, I'm just going to see if this happens. But it doesn't work that way. You have to basically make the decision that this is the type of person that I want to become, and then these are the actions that that type of person would take, and then we align our calendars and our budgets in accordance with that so that the investments we make yield the results that we want. But the thing is that people want to say, hey, wouldn't it be great if I owned Apple, but they never buy the stock? If you want to be that version of you, you need to start buying stock in that today, both by paying in time and paying in money to vote with your dollars about what you truly care about. And the reason that I'm hitting this so hard is that it's never been easier than it is today to be successful. It's also never been easier to be distracted. So along the theme of investing in the things that matter most, the first thing we do is we eliminate all the stuff that sucks. I define commitment as the elimination of alternatives. If you get married, you eliminate all people of whatever sex you're married to that are not that person. Actually, you eliminate everyone who's not that person independent of sex, right? That is a commitment. Right? If you enter into a partnership and you say, I'm not going to do any business besides this business as part of the terms, then you've eliminated all alternatives. And so if you want someone to commit, ask them to eliminate everything else that's not the main thing. These are all the things, a laundry list of things that are probably not your main thing that very likely are getting in the way. And these are the most common things that I see in my DMs, that I see in my comments from people who are not getting where they want to go as fast as they'd like to get there. First big category is bad friends. So if you want better friends, get used to seeing them less. Better friends are busy friends. So I remember when I started working more and some of the friends that I had were a little bit more ambitious, I started realizing that the people that I liked the most, I actually didn't spend as much time with, and the people that were always available were the ones that I didn't want to become more like. Here's 5 questions you should consider when thinking about whether to keep a friend in your life or cut them. Question number 1 is, if someone told you that you're a lot like your friend, would you take that as a compliment? Second, are you truly fulfilled by the friendship, or is it just someone to keep you from being lonely? Third, are you able to be unapologetically yourself, or do you feel the need to act differently to please that friend or to be around that friend? Fourth, do you like who this friend is right now today, or do you like the idea of the friend and who they could be someday? And then finally, 5, would you want your future or imagined child to be friends with someone like this person? And I think it's a really wonderful litmus test because it forces you to take a look outside of yourself in order to have perspective from a third-party angle on the true quality of that person. But the reality is that rare people are by definition rare. It's normal to have fewer of them. And so if you only have a few friends or one good friend, then that's normal if you want rare and exceptional friends. If you have many friends, it's far more likely that the bar for your friendship is too low. And to give you a filter that I actually used for the most important friend in my life, Layla, I like to think, does this person have the same scale of goals that I have? So it doesn't mean that they have to have the same goals as you, but it has to be the same level of goals as you, because at least you're going in the same direction. So that's number one. Number two is, do they have the same level of dedication and commitment to those goals? Because I don't know about you, but I had plenty of friends who were like, I want to be an NFL player. I want to be a really rich tech entrepreneur. I want to be a touring musician, right? And they had these goals, but I'm like, dude, I see you just playing Fortnite 4 hours a day and you practice guitar once a week. Like, do you really want that? Or do you just like saying it because it makes you feel good? And so I wanted people who walked the walk. And I wanted people who would keep up with my pace. And if you are someone who's ambitious, and this is me just talking specifically to you because there's only a few people who are watching this who really are, and you'll know that if it's you, you have to get used to being alone. Because there are seasons where you'll basically transition from one group of friends into another. And it's not even a group of friends. You'll usually transition from a group of friends into no friends. And then you'll find one or two people who are at a new level. And then sometimes those people introduce you to some of their friends. And if you keep walking and you keep outpacing, then that group will then start retiring past you. And then maybe one person stays with you, maybe no one does, and you'll have another lonely period. I'm saying this because I used to think that there was something wrong with me, when in reality, I just didn't understand what the nature of being exceptional meant. And so I'm saying this purely from a definitional perspective. To be exceptional means that you are the exception. It means that you are not normal. And so it's normal for normal people to find you abnormal if you do things that are not normal. Don't let people who have mediocre goals deter you from taking actions that make you great, because it makes you different. Realizing that I thought most people actually made no sense. They say they had these goals, but they took no action. And they called me work obsessed, and they would tell me I should take time off. And they're like, hey, you're not as cool anymore. You're not hanging out with the boys. Like, why aren't you participating in the fantasy league? Why aren't you watching football on Sunday with us? And for me, I actually used to love watching football with my friends. It was actually one of my biggest things that I look forward to. But the thing is that like I needed that Sunday because I had to prep workouts, I had to prep the music list for the next day, I had to run billing, I had to do all this other work. And the thing is that like I looked at that football game and I was like, my goals are more important to me than this. And so I think that a lot of people don't actually look at themselves in the mirror and say like, 1 year from today, will I remember this football game? Or will I remember the fact that I'm not where I said I wanted to be? And to me, that was significantly more painful. Now, this is an uncomfortable fact for a lot of people. Your ability to delay gratification is actually a function of intelligence. And so your ability to learn at a longer and longer delay is something that comes, we're talking from primates all the way up. And so basically, if you want to teach a monkey how to do something, you have to say, hey, do this thing, and then immediately give them a reward. And the longer that period goes on, the less trainable they are. The sign of intelligence is that you can actually expand the reinforcement window and they can still abstract it back to the original action. If you want to practice intelligence, then being able to actively delay your need for a result or reward from the work you do will make you a more intelligent person because your rate of learning will actually increase, despite the fact that your reward rate will decrease in the short term. And so to give you full transparency on what 2025 might look like if you accomplish your goals at the end, you might have a different friend group or no friends at all for a season. Because you don't become like the people you admire, you become like the people you want to impress. Harvard made this wonderful study years ago about the best predictor of someone's long-term material success was what they called their reference group. Now, this has been misquoted in places by the 5 people you spend the most time with, but it's actually the 5 people you compare yourself to. And that's a very big difference. Now, I want to take it a step further because I think to myself, what are the things that affect our behavior? And so it's really about the people that you want to impress, not necessarily even who you compare yourself to, because it's the people whose voices you hear when you're about to make a big life decision. And so when you make a big life decision, you don't listen to the people closest to you. You should listen to the people closest to your goals. And some of them may not be in your neighborhood or your city or your state or your high school or your college. They might just be people you follow on the internet. And you have to abstract, what would that person think about this decision? Not my mom, not my homie, not my uncle, or that person at church. And so I think this is a great transition of thinking through, instead of necessarily even having mentors, having heroes, and transposing what you think their decision-making calculus would be onto your life. And so what's interesting is that I will have conversations with entrepreneurs and they'll say, hey, here's my current condition, this is my desired state, this is what I perceive my obstacle to be. And I say, okay, well, what do you think? And they're like, well, I think you're gonna say I should do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, you're right, why aren't you? They're like, well, and the thing is that basically what they answer with after that well is, in essence, other people's opinion who aren't at the place they want to be. Here's the uncomfortable truth, which is that winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners, and you never receive hate from above, always below, because winners have their eyes on the goal, not on other people. And so you have to decide whether you want to be a loser or a winner. And I'm just being real with you. What this looks like in reality, and maybe for you in 2025, will be like this. First, you look like an idiot to everyone else while you try to figure it out. Then everyone else looks like an idiot for ever doubting you. Seasons. And so everyone takes a different amount of years to stop giving a fuck about what everyone else thinks. And if you're going to get there eventually, you might as well start today and enjoy the benefits longer. So if I'm 85 years old, I think about what that man cares about. And that man cares about very, very little. All you have to do is talk to an elderly person or a grandparent and be like, what do you think about this? A lot of people are like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Life is literally too short. They literally don't have time for it. And so I think to myself, if that's the ultimate version of me, if I'm going to get there eventually, and that's what the wisest people think after having the most life experience, then why would I not try to cheat code that into today and then not have to go looking back from 85 and think, man, I wish I knew then what I know now. Look forward to 85-year-old self and say, I am going to choose to learn the lesson I know I'm going to learn and act as if I knew it today. Because the difference between them and you is that what they consider work, you consider life. And so you have to accept that you have a fundamental different understanding of how life works. And I believe that is a more accurate view of reality. The reason that the rich can get richer is because they see the world differently than the poor. And so it makes sense that if your poor friends don't see what you see, that they see through the lens of poverty. And all my goal in life is to be able to see reality more accurately. And so in the beginning, you have to develop this armor, this thick skin around people saying those little snide comments of like, you work too hard, you're too obsessed, you have a toxic work capacity, and why are you working weekends? Why are you working late nights? You're not, like, this is not worth it. They're not paying you enough for the work that you do. All of these different things, because eventually that armor on the outside actually just becomes one with you and you don't even hear it anymore. Because I can promise you that those people who were in my life decades ago, they're just not even, I don't hear those claims anymore for two reasons. One, because my reality changed so drastically that they couldn't say anything. And secondarily, they're just not in my world anymore. I was only able to get here because what they deemed acceptable, I deemed intolerable. How far you go in life, I truly believe this, is based and predicated only on one thing, which is your actual standard. And so I believe that the person who runs any company or runs any division should be the person who has the highest standards. And if there's ever a day that someone has a higher standard for acquisition.com than me, they should run this instead of me, because they would be the one who's best serving the company. And so the person who should have the highest standard for you is you. And so it makes sense that they have a lower bar, but why would I listen to their bar on my life? I think that that standard is the one thing that rich kids get from rich parents more than anything else. Is because they have an expectation of life. They don't accept opportunities that are below that standard. And so they actually get their huge leg up on the pick, on the vehicles that they choose to pursue. And so one of the tougher parts, if you're not from an area where people make a lot of money, or you don't know anybody who's a super successful entrepreneur, is that you basically have to borrow someone else's measuring stick. And you have to say, is this the standard that Elon would pursue? Is this the standard Bezos would pursue? Is this the standard Jobs would pursue? And if it isn't, then why are you doing it? If you want to be like them, then act like them. If you want to be like your friends, then you can act like your friends, but don't be surprised that you have what they have or lack what they lack. If we're thinking about elimination, we're eliminating bad friends and tangentially their opinions about you that are affecting your behavior. So the next thing are what things are playing interference on your time and your attention. All right, so I would say opinions of other people are affecting your behavior and your decisions. I think that your environment affects your efficiency of behavior. So think about how much more you get per hour of output. If you can't sit still, ignore notifications, and focus on one task for 8 hours straight, never expect to build anything great. And as uncomfortable as that is, it's also the truth. Like, I don't know a single incredibly successful entrepreneur that can't sit down and have hyper-focused periods of time, sometimes weekends, weeks at a time where they don't talk to anyone and they just hammer away. And it's whether they're coding for software or they're making some insane marketing campaign and all the email follow-ups and all the text follow-ups and the affiliate promotions and incentives, or someone who's creating a product that they're designing and they're in the shop and they keep tweaking at it, or there's somebody who's hyper-scaling a company and saying, I'm going to sit in 20 interviews a day for 7 days straight so I can hire 20 people this week because I need to get going, right? Like, if you can't sit still and ignore notifications and focus for a day, nothing great will get accomplished, because it's not about what you want, it's about what's required. And whether that's your best or not is irrelevant. It's just there's a price tag and you gotta be willing to pay for it, or you don't get the thing. And a lot of times it's not what you want. And I spend a lot of time trying to dispel the concept of like follow your passion, because I think it leads more people astray than it helps. Because it's very easy for someone who's successful, who's already delegated tons of things, to only then focus on their area of genius and then say, here for my seat, do what I do. But there's a very big difference between doing what someone does and doing what they did to get there. And I think this is what's lost in a lot of the content that I see in the entrepreneurial space. And to be clear, whenever I'm trying to get to the next level, I often have to take on things that I don't know how to do. And I have to learn how to do them, which means I have to suck for a period of time. And sucking sucks. But the thing is you have to be able to embrace that period of time and say, like, this is the cost of greatness. And so I'll give you something very tactical. So I have timers in a lot of my offices, and my team has adopted this too, which is I like to time block, which is essentially saying, how long do I think this is going to take? And you can do this on a week scale, you can do it on a daily level, it depends on the level of project you're tackling. But for me, even on the most micro level, I say, okay, how long should this take? I'll then crank this thing, boop, I think this should take 20 minutes, and then I hit start, and I let the timer go. And if for whatever reason something distracts me, I pause it so that I know that I didn't actually work that period of time. And so what happens is it will give you a very real look at how long you're actually working versus how long you think you're working, and you tell other people working, and you Instagram how long you're working. And as I've become more efficient at work, meaning my output per unit of time has gone up, I've realized that there's just been a significant decrease in the distractions that I allow to interrupt me. Again, if you want to stay focused, staying focused is not like zeroing in and saying, I'm going to do it just like I'm going to just zoom in on this thing. It's more that focus occurs when you remove everything else. What's left is focus. And so Jerry Seinfeld has this famous process that he talks about with writing. And I think writers are also wonderful people for talking to for deep work, because it's the nature of the work they do. One of the things that he did, and he has done for years for his stand-up so he can script it out, is that he locks himself in a room that has no windows and has nothing but a yellow notepad and a pen. And he tells himself that he has to go in that room and he doesn't have to write, but he can't do anything else. And so what ends up happening is that writing occurs as a default. And so focus kind of works the same way. You eliminate everything else to create focus. You don't try and push harder while also having these disruptions. So there's 3 easy ways that I make my phone less distracting. The first is I switch it to grayscale. And so grayscale decreases consumption across all people by 30%-ish, and that's research backed. It's pretty cool. The second thing is turning off all notifications across all apps on your phone, because you never want your app to be dictating when it's convenient for the app to disrupt you. Like, how ridiculous is that? But we let apps have that permission. Most phones and people want to push notifications to you. I want to pull them when it's convenient for me. The third thing is other people. And so I have a mode on my phone where no one can get through. And when I do that, then I can reach out to them when it's convenient for me. Because if it's actually an emergency, call 911. And if it's not a true emergency, then it can wait. And my team wanted to remind me that I don't email. I heard in, I think it was like 2016, that Bill Clinton didn't use email. And I was like, if he's the president and he doesn't use email, I cannot use email. And so my team doesn't contact me via email. And so if you can eliminate entire channels, that's also an easier way to concentrate fewer flows of communication. And here's the thing, it's always harder, takes longer, and costs more than you think it will. That is a reflection of poor expectations, not that reality is bad. And so it makes sense that it would be harder, take longer, and cost more. Because if it didn't, then everyone would have it. And if everyone had it, then it wouldn't be worthwhile. And so literally the difficulty of the task that you embark on is proportional to the reward that you ultimately get, because you are the asset that you build more than the achievement. And so if it's hard, that's amazing, because it will make you that much harder once you conquer it. And it will also make it harder for anybody else who wants to follow in your footsteps. And so the higher up the mountain you climb, the